Hi, welcome back to Carrie's Kitchen. I'm Carrie, and this is my kitchen. Today we're going to be making a fantastic oven roasted chicken. We're going to stuff it with apples and herbs, and we're going to pair it with some smashed acorn squash, which we're also oven roasting, and some sauteed kale and garlic and olive oil. We're going to serve it with some crusty French bread and butter and a little wine. So join me as we make this fantastic fall dish. Okay, here I have my acorn squash. I've halved them and gutted them. I've scraped out all the insides and seeds, drizzled them with a little olive oil and some kosher salt, and I'm putting them in the oven at 375 to roast along with my chicken. Okay, so my chicken has been washed inside and out, and I've pulled off any excess feathers. Sometimes when you get a good fresh local chicken, it'll have some extra feathers. So I've taken off any little extra feathers that are on there, and it's clean and dry. So first step is I've cut up my apple into pieces, and my half of an onion, I've cut it into quarters, and then I've got 2 cloves of garlic here that I just mashed to peel, but they kind of broke up a little bit, but I didn't chop them. You can even put them in whole. And then I've separated some salt and some herbs de Provence because I don't want to cross-contaminate into my salt or my herbs with my fingers from the chicken. So the first thing we're going to do is salt and herb the inside of the cavity. So I'm going to open it up this way where I have the butt end, and then I'm going to put some salt in here. Quite a bit. I want to make sure the inside's salty because it makes a big difference. And then I'm also going to take some herbs de Provence, and I'm going to do the same thing with the herbs de Provence, which are French herbs, if you're not familiar. And I kind of want to make sure that it gets on all little sides of the chicken, in the rib cage, all inside the meat. Because this is only going on the inside to flavor the meat as it roasts. It is not going on the outside because it'll burn. All right. So now we have that. So then I'm going to alternate stuffing apples, onions, and garlic. So I'm going to grab one of my onion wedges, shove it in there, grab an apple wedge, shove it in there, maybe some garlic, right? Put that in there. And then I'll just kind of keep alternating. Put another onion in here, another apple, another apple. There we go. Some more garlic there and there. All right, so my bird is stuffed. So now my next step is olive oil. I'm going to start with the back of the chicken up, drizzle it with some olive oil, and then I'm going to rub it all in. I'm going to give my chicken a little massage. His little legs, all the joints, just make sure everything has a nice, even coat of olive oil. And then I'm going to salt this side. This is why I keep my salt separate, see? Okay, so I'm rubbing a little more olive oil and salt, then I'm going to flip them over because this is the side that I want up while it cooks. I put 2 ends of apples, if you see, in the end here because I'm not going to truss it. I'm just going to fold it over like this. So now, use a little more olive oil here. I forgot to separate olive oil. I'm just going to wash this off real thoroughly when I'm done so we don't have any raw chicken on anything. All right, so everything has a nice, even coat of olive oil and salt. Now I'm going to grab a little cracked pepper, just a touch. I don't want a lot, just a teeny bit. So I'm going to put it in the oven for a half an hour per pound at 375. All right, so my squash is out of the oven. It is nice and beautifully roasted. It's still warm, but it's not, I let it cool down enough that I can handle it. So I'm scooping out the squash away from the skin and dumping it in my bowl. Okay, so now I'm going to add just a pinch more salt. Remember we put a little bit of salt and olive oil on it in the oven. So just a teeny touch more salt, maybe half a teaspoon to a teaspoon. And then I'm going to add the tiniest little bit of cinnamon, about half a teaspoon. And then about the same amount of nutmeg. Mash it up. And voila. So now the last step for my acorn squash is honey. After the first hour of baking, I baste my chicken every 15 minutes after the first hour. Just give it a good once over with its own juice. And I cover every part, the legs, the breasts. It makes for a much tastier chicken. I have a medium-high pan for our kale. I'm going to put maybe 2 tablespoons, a tablespoon and a half of olive oil in the pan, and 2 cloves of chopped garlic. We don't want them to burn, but as soon as they really start smelling kind of like garlic bread, I'm going to add my kale and some salt and pepper. It's that easy. So I've given our kale a few minutes lidded. Take the lid off and just gently toss it around. And that's it, our kale's done. It's still kind of sizzling. The garlic is fully cooked, but it's still going to have some crunchiness. It's warm and wilted and it's got all the flavor, but it's still going to have some crispiness so that we don't have too creamy, soft, mushy things as a side. You've got a kind of a crisp, hot vegetable, and then a nice, soft one. Our bird is ready. Now, how I know it's ready is the little legs, look how loose they are. They get really loose, like they're ready to fall off the bones. Both of the legs will be like that. Like you could just rip them off. You wouldn't even need a knife. They're just loosey-goosey. That's how I know it's ready. Now, if you'll notice, this particular chicken is a lot browner than maybe what you're used to when you roast a chicken. That does not mean the temperature is too high, and it does not mean it's burnt. It's because we used apples. We stuffed it with apples, a whole apple worth of apples. So the natural sugars in the apple, as it came out and incorporated itself with the juices of the chicken and we basted it, created sort of a caramelization in the coating. And that's why it's extra dark. It does not mean it's burnt. You didn't do anything wrong. This particular stuffing recipe makes your chicken darker. So it's done. So now I'm going to remove it, put it on a plate, and let it cover it with foil and let it rest for 15 minutes before serving.